Welcome back to Align Yourself podcast. I am your host, Ebony, and today we have an episode for you that's inside our Women of Community series. Tori is here with us today to share with us how her firstborn son, Bowie, was never the same after his 18-month-old vaccinations. He went on to being diagnosed with autism, and she shares with us what it was like throughout her journey from vaccinating him and following all the right steps and recommendations from her doctor. She shares her journey of starting to see firsthand the risks and side effects of these drugs, and how she spoke up and consistently was made to feel crazy when she knew something wasn't right with him after each trip to the clinic and after each dose of vaccine was administered. Tori is here to share with you because she knows firsthand what it's like to see a vaccine reaction and wants to ensure you are well equipped before making any medical decision on the risks and side effects that vaccines impose. Tori, welcome to Align Yourself podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ebony, for having me on your podcast today.
Tori, if there is one thing the person sitting with us takes from today's episode, what would it be?
I think most of all is to trust your intuition and your mama gut. Like, I've been in that situation so many times the last 7 years with Bowie and my other children that, I think, listening to your intuition as a mum or as a parent in general is super important.
Tori, can you take us back to your first pregnancy with Bowie? Who were you at this point in your life? And can you start the journey to where you are now and how that looks like for you having a child with autism?
Yes, I can. So I think the difference between who I am now and who I was back then, I was a new mum, postpartum stress. Yeah, so back then I wasn't sure of myself. I didn't know what to believe. I was in a bit of a like, what do you do for your child? You've been told a certain way to what you need to be doing, vaccinating, all this stuff, and you just like trust in that. And so you have trusting the professionals blindly without any information. I do remember one of the times that when I was pregnant with Bowie, my doctor wanted me to get the flu vaccination and the whooping cough. And I was just like, I've never had the flu. Like, why would I get it? And then he brought up all these facts. And I was kind of like, okay, I still didn't get it, but it's just, they're kind of very strong in their delivery and you kind of get shut down. And so at that point, I was like, okay, you're in this profession, I'm not. Yeah, I think that when you're a first time mum, you just believe in anything and everything that they say because you are meant to trust them. So I was just like, okay, the mother that I am now, I don't take any crap from anyone. I go in there and I tell them what I need from them and how they can help me or help Bowie. And Bowie's never really gone to the doctors since the 5 years. Yeah.
So you had Bowie, and Bowie's a little baby. And at that point, you're hearing that the doctor is advising on something for your child, and you ask the questions. However, like you said, you're the professional. I need to trust you. So what did those first appointments of him being on the childhood vaccine schedule look like for you? And did anything come up in those first visits that made you have any worries or doubts about vaccinating him?
I think my first worry was when you are pregnant, you get that little file and you flick through the little book that you get at every midwife or doctor's appointment. And I remember towards the end, they wanted me to sign this form that said that Bowie, in the first few hours of his life, is going to have a Hep B shot. And I just thought to myself, I was like, what? Like, this baby's just been born, this fresh new little newborn. Like, why are they getting a Hep B shot? Like, I don't have it. Curtis doesn't have it. I don't know 5 people that have that. And so I thought that was really strange. So I questioned it. And I am very grateful that I had my sister, who is a doula, to help me understand that a little bit more. And I did bring up with the doctor that, like, I didn't want to do that. And he kind of just said, I don't understand why. Like, this is the reason why we don't have that anymore, is because of giving him to them so young. And I just thought that that was just so weird. Like, there's so much more I could say about the Hep B shot, like on children and babies, but that was my first kind of like, why would you do that? Like, I don't understand. And then when I went to our first visit, I think you go to the health nurse, like a nurse after or something. And I remember being there, like, she was like, has your baby had this shot yet? And I was like, no, not yet. And then I ended up going into seeing the doctor after. And I just remember him saying, like, why are you delaying them? And I just thought, there was something I couldn't explain to him. I was too scared to bring up with him that, like, because it's like sexually transmitted disease or blood, like you can only get it from that. And if I didn't know anyone with that, why did Bowie need that? Like that, it just didn't make sense in my brain. Anyway, I also, in the back of my mind, heard stuff from back in the day when I was a bit younger to do around with vaccinations and why you should know before you do stuff. So it was just always in the back of my mind when I went to that appointment. But I had a chat with my husband about it and we did decide to delay them. So I said that to the doctor and he was kind of trying to get me to do it then and there and was like, why would you wait to protect your child? And I don't know. I cried to him and he was just like, you're okay, but I can get these stats up for you. And in my head, yeah, I didn't want to do it. So anyway, you're meant to get your Hep B and K shot on your first day of life. And then I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks later. I can't really remember because I didn't follow it. I think Bowie received his first lot of immunizations when he was 12 weeks old. I think I pushed it out to that. I wanted to get breastfeeding down pat first, but really crazy. This is like a little tangent. Sorry. When Bowie left the hospital, he was a breech baby. And so he had a dilated kidney. And so I left the hospital with Bowie on antibiotics for the first 10 weeks of his life. And so in my head, I was like, he's on these antibiotics. They told me if he gets an infection, he's going to be really sick and could possibly not end well. So Kurt and I were kind of like feared into giving him antibiotics for that long. And my sister, who was my doula, was like, he doesn't need that. And I was like, well, they said that he did, like just in case of an infection. And she was like, yeah, but Tori, you can take him to hospital straight away. These are the signs. But me and my husband, being a first time mum, you're just like, I'll do whatever to keep him safe. But I didn't want to vaccinate him and have him on antibiotics as well. And I don't know. There was just something in me that just did not feel right about the whole situation.
So he's now had 10 weeks of antibiotics. And when you look back, how do you feel? Do you feel like he needed that at that point?
I know I shouldn't be ashamed of myself because you only know what you know. But if I was the person that I was today, the mum that I am now, there was no way in hell I would have ever done that. I did stop him at 7 weeks, but still, even then, I've just learned, yeah, so much about your gut microbiome and your brain connection and all that. Like, there is just no way on this planet I would ever consider doing that again, ever. Because, again, like my sister told me, we do have a hospital system that if he did come down with an infection, I can go in there and take him, and that's the place he needs to go. But yeah, when you're in that postpartum, I got depression really bad after having Bowie as well. So I was just down for anything to protect him.
Of course, of course. Any mum does anything to protect their child. So now he's 12 weeks old and you've decided, right, he's been given the best chance we've delayed 6 weeks from the 6 weeks immunization. So then you're taking him to the 12 weeks. Did he have any side effects after the 12-week
Yes.
immunization?
Yeah. So when I finally took him in, the doctor, he said that he's really glad that I've decided to protect my child and that I have come in. And I just said, like, will Bowie get sick from this? Like, what if he gets sick? And he said to me, it is quite normal for them to get a fever and a temperature after. It is normal for them to get, the runny poos and all that kind of stuff. And in my head, I was like, do I really want my son getting sick? Like, it was just, I cried so much about it. I cried it's going to make me cry now. I cried so much that I actually wasn't with him when he got his first vaccinations. I let the nurse take him away. So I think that didn't help my postnatal depression because you're meant to protect your child and I can't even go and do a decision that I made for my child. So yeah, that was really hard. And I just remember him screaming. And I said to Kurt, I was like, I don't want to ever do that again. And he got really sick. I think he didn't pee for 24 hours and he had quite a high temp. My mum and me took him to the hospital to see what was wrong, and they said that it was normal and just to give him Panadol to help with his temperatures. And I was just like, okay, well, it just didn't feel right. Like the whole thing just didn't feel right. But anyway, I followed the protocol, gave him the baby Nurofen and baby Panadol. And again, now I know what Nurofen does to babies' brains. It just wasn't a really good mix from the start. And then every vaccination after that, I tried to delay them and I forgot about them accidentally. And I had a conversation with my husband after a couple of them and I was like, well, you're always away. Like I'm the one that takes him and he's always sick after. I don't want to vaccinate him anymore. And Kurt was we were both going back and forth like on points of like why we should and why we shouldn't. Still not knowing the hardcore details of actually going out and searching it for ourselves because you trust the doctors again. So yeah, we did decide to continue to delay them, but still do them.
So at this point, so we're at the 12-week mark. Is there anything different about Bowie?
No, he didn't change, which was
No.
really good. He was like your typical sickness, had a fever for a few days, a little bit sick, a couple of spews, and then, back to being a baby, just being normal, which was great.
So the 18-month vaccine, you delayed that?
So the 18-month, I only delayed it by a few weeks. And so that was the one that changed. That was when he got violently ill, unresponsive, took him to hospital. Again, they said this is normal for a vaccination, Panadol, Nurofen. Pretty sure Kurt and I were talking that I remember him having a temp for like 4 or 5 days of 40 and I was just pumping him with Panadol and Nurofen. And it was almost like after, like you could tell that when a child's sick, there's like the lights are on and no one's really home anyway because they're trying to fight something in their body. But like we would look at him and just be like, there's like, I don't know if he's okay. And he changed a lot after. He wasn't the same kid. So before his 18-month-old immunizations, he played normally, played with his cousins, played with other kids, called me mum, Kurt dad, nan, ta, no, all the normal things an 18-month-old does. Then after his 18-month-old immunizations, he got an ear infection and got on antibiotics, wasn't calling me mum anymore, wasn't looking at me in the eyes. I have videos of him like lining up his toys, stimming really hard, like he would flap really hard and spinning in circles. And Bowie was our first child. So we were kind of like, maybe that's normal. We didn't really pay too much attention to it. And then my sister visited. She came over. She lives in Berlin. And she had a friend with a kid with autism. And she was kind of just like, he doesn't play normally, Tori. And I was just like, oh, he's fine. He just likes to be out in the garden by himself, like doing the same, like he used to have this monster truck and he'd go around in circles and just do the same thing for ages. And again, my first child, thinking that's normal. Maybe that was a milestone. I'm not sure. I didn't know anyone with a child that had autism or vax injured as what I ended up finding out. But after she said that, my auntie said something and she was like, I think he needs to get his grommets done. So Kurt and I booked in with Dr. Cooney up in Perth, one of the best ears, nose and throat doctors, and my mother-in-law actually helped us get in with him. He did an ear test. One of his ears failed, so I was just saying glue ear. I didn't like people saying that it was autism because I was kind of just like, you don't know, like we're doing the things, let us do it. I think I was definitely in mass denial. I didn't want anything wrong with my child. No one does. So one of our appointments at the ears, nose and throat doctor, he actually said to me, I don't think your son has anything wrong with his ears. I think it might be autism. There's this, he was being super kind about it. And I was by myself and I was just like, oh, here's another person trying to tell me it's autism. And he was just like, there is this Western Australian Autism Association here. I'll give you their number, but I will keep an eye on one of the ears that is blocked with Bowie, but I don't think that's what's causing his speech delay. And so we got him into a speech therapist straight away because by this time it was like a fair few people had brought it up with us about him not being able to talk, being nearly, 2 and all of that kind of stuff. So we got in with a lady named Annika Ballantyne, and she was awesome. She was very straightforward with me, but still nurturing at the same time, because I just feel like mothers at that time need to be nurtured but need to be told straight. And I think I was still in just such denial. She was saying, let's get the ball rolling, put him on the public system. You need to try and get NDIS straight away. You're going to save so much money, and it's going to help him. So we were just on all these different avenues. And yeah, that's where it kind of started to go down that autism path.
I can only imagine at that point in time, you're inside the jar, so it's hard to read the label. And so he's 2, and so only a few months prior, he's starting to say all of his has his words. And now at this point, he's no longer saying these words. And at that point, had you put 2 and 2 together that perhaps that vaccine caused something?
I had the thought, but I remember going to see the doctor, because you need a doctor's referral to see a pediatrician. And I remember being in his room and being like, I think Bowie got vax injured. He was like, vax injuries don't exist in Australia. It just doesn't happen. And I was just like, something in my gut is telling me that that week of the 40-10th, the antibiotics that he had after, all the antibiotics that he had, every other vaccination that he had always ended up with an ear infection. There was just something in me that was like, he's vax injured. I can't, he is. And then I remember him saying as well, the paperwork you'll have to do to try and get that proof. And I was like, well, that's really fucked up. You can see a kid. I have a video 3 days before his vaccinations playing peekaboo with me behind the wall, and him saying, here he is, because we played that game all the time. So it was something that was embedded, he knew how to talk. And then I had this kid after this vaccination that wouldn't even look me in the eyes or call me mum anymore. And you're telling me that there's no connection to that. It was really disheartening that I felt like my story was fake and that it wasn't important, and that, there's all this paperwork. So just let's go down this road now. So yeah, it was really hard.
Whilst this is your story today, Tori, I think for people who don't believe that there could be any form of reaction to a drug, even though you could feed 30 kids a peanut butter sandwich at a birthday party, and there's a chance that one child might have a reaction to that peanut butter sandwich, and it could kill them.
Yeah.
Or same with dairy or gluten or all of these things, and to not think that these drugs have any sort of risk and side effect is wild. And I think majority of people in society, they think, well, why haven't we known? But because it's not put on the media, because when you go down the rabbit hole of discovering vaccines, as you would know, who the media is controlled by, how filtered it is, how there's such strong regulations, how in COVID, the internet got wiped of quote unquote anything that was speaking out against vaccines, anything. So if someone's sitting here today, I'm just thinking about them because they're listening and they're going, the gymnastics in your brain really starts to try make up these excuses of, no, it can't be. Like you said, when we've all been in that situation, when we're going, now our gut's talking to us, but the person in front of us is saying, no, it's okay, because the brochure says okay. And just to be mindful, I've had that said to me, and I think I could go on Canva and create a brochure in my fucking sleep, and I could make up anything on it just because anyone's professional. And just want to add, I was talking to someone this morning about this because I continue to take my kids to the doctor because I find it really interesting hearing the medical side as opposed to as I learn about the holistic world. And I like to listen and take the two on and sit with how I feel of what I want to do. I'm not anti-medical, just want to say that. And I've noticed that each time I've taken taken my kids to the doctor, they actually Google in front of me every single time what you're saying to them, and then they read it off the screen. And I can't help but to feel like, "Oh, I could do that." And I actually said it to the last doctor I went to. I said, "Oh, that's funny." And I said to him, "Oh, could I have just Googled that at home?" Because he just Googled it and printed it out and then handed it to me. And I just, yeah, and slowly finding my strength in that, because it isn't easy. It is so hard to stand up to somebody. They're intimidating. It is so scary. They know what they're talking about. And you can feel when someone's looking at you like you're speaking a different language and talking like you're crazy. So I just want to take a minute to honor you, Tori, for in those moments that is incredibly hard for any mother, any person have to go through, and you handed over that power, and I can only imagine how that must make you feel today. But same with the person who's listening, we only know what we know at the time. We only can do what we can do with the knowledge at the time, and look at who you are now. Look at who you've become, and look at what you're doing for your kids. So I just wanted to take a moment to honor that for you. So what was the next stage in your journey with Bowie then, Tori?
So once I got the pediatrician's form and stuff, we went on a wait list because I don't know if you know this as well, but the wait list in especially WA for getting your child even looked at publicly, because it is quite expensive to go private, but a lot of people's books are closed private. So you really have to be in the known. And that's why I'm really grateful for Annika Ballantyne, because she knew of a pediatrician. I just needed the paper, and she was like, "We can get the diagnosis next week, but are you willing to pay?" And I was like, whatever's going to help Bowie, I'm like full force now. But even though I was trusting in other people still, I like kind of went to Instagram and Facebook about it also. I had my researching. I'm not good at studying, but I think like when you watch something happen in front of you, you're going to blame yourself. And there was so many years that I blame myself for what happened to Bowie and what was happening to Bowie, because I wasn't strong enough to be like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to go home and research and I'm going to come back. I was kind of like, I just was doing it for face value and what he actually verbally said to me. Again, I was a first time mom. It's 25. I was just, I don't know, like I was like, whatever, you've been doing this. The guy had been like, Bowie's doctor, I think, is still practicing, and he like delivered people like my mum. So I was, yeah, just trusting in him that he had been around for a long time. So anyway, so yeah, I went to the internet to kind of like research, and I wanted to connect with someone. And it was more over in America that people were talking about it. So I was kind of like started to follow these mums that had these vaccine injuries that won cases, and like heard their story, and this 18-month age kept coming up, and it kind of like solidified for me that it isn't normal. Anyways, my first pediatrician appointment in the public system before I went and seen our private one that we seen, I bring it up with her, and I just said, I had already connected some of these dots, and I had already been on the internet and took it to social media, and some people were sending me all these things. So I did say to this pediatrician, I was kind of getting a bit of a backbone with it. And I was kind of like, what's with this 18-month-old? Like Bowie was talking before then, and why is he not now? And she was one of the ones that actually said to me that that's when autism happens. It's normal to happen around 18 months old. And I said, I believe it was from the vaccinations, and told my story. And she wrote it down on paper, but I could tell that she was staunch in her profession and being like that I'm crazy and that like that's just insane. And I ended up getting such a like bitchy persona with her. And I was kind of like, have you had your child go through this? And she was like, I don't have autism in my family. Like it was just a really awful conversation. I remember walking away being like, I will never fucking take Bowie to this place again. Like I'm going to do it privately. I was starting to get angry about it now. Like I was starting to be like, I'm getting shut down. I'm not getting heard. It brought back a lot of childhood trauma that I've had to try and deal with, not being heard and being pushed to the side as a kid. So I was like, no one's listening to me. And I'd come home so angry, and Kurt's like, just focus on Bowie. Like you've got this, because I was bringing out these articles from America, these people's pages from America that had a son or had a daughter that experienced this. And I was bringing it to Curtis, and he was at a point that he was kind of just like, well, you're deep diving. I'm not. You're connecting with people. I'm not talking to people. I'm letting you kind of handle it. And I trust in you now. Yeah, it was a full thing. So said to this pediatrician, I want to keep Bowie on the books, but I don't really want to see you again. So I did get changed to somebody else. But yeah, we went privately. Annika could get me in. So his speech therapist that we connected with, we got approved for NDIS instantly. So we weren't having to pay for weekly sessions, which are so expensive. So yeah, Annika got us in. And I remember going to the first pediatrician appointment up in Mount Lawley. And I remember I was a bit annoyed, but he only had this box of dinosaurs in his thing with a dinosaur book. And he was like, Bowie's choosing the dinosaurs to play with over coming and doing this. It's called the Griffith test that they do to see where your child is at. And Bowie had no interest. He's like this this 2-year-old running around like with all this energy. He was chaos. And yeah, so he was trying to get Bowie's attention, but Bowie didn't want to have anything to do with him, like really typical autistic traits. And I just remember sitting at the end. So he did that test. We were in there for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And I remember sitting down, and he was like, well, I don't diagnose on the first day. I want him to come in and give that Griffiths test another go. And I remember, like I said, this backbone was coming in me now. And I was like, look, I think I said something like, we all know a bear shits in the woods. Let's call it for what it is. What do you think it is? I'm strong. I can handle this. And I think I gave myself the big uns because inside I was dying and I was in denial, and I didn't want it to be Bowie's story, and I didn't want my child to have autism, all this stuff. So anyway, he said, I think he has global developmental delay, and I think it's nonverbal level 3 autism. And I just remember being like, inside, I was like, fuck you. Like, I just remember being so angry at him that he like confirmed my worst nightmare. I remember getting in the car, I cried, and I just remember picking Bowie up, walking to my car crying and just apologizing to him over and over again. And I messaged his speech therapist, Annika, and I was like, I need to talk to you. And because she said I can ring her because she knew how stressed about it I was. I was like, I need to ring you. And I said, do you think it's this? Do you think it's this? He said global developmental delay. And that's what I clung to. I was like, I'm not calling it autism. I remember this mum was sharing about her journey as well on social media. And I messaged her because her son had got diagnosed way younger. And I was like, these are Bowie's traits, but they were saying it could be autism, but it's definitely a global developmental delay. Like, I was in such denial, trying to lie to myself to make myself feel better because I held so much guilt over what I had done to him. And yeah, she would just say like, Tori, it's okay. It's okay. My son's beautiful. Like, he's got autism and it's fine. And I was just like, how is she so okay with that? Like, and then I was like, I would ask her, like, did you get your son vaccinated? And she was like, yeah, of course I did. And I just remember being like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why are all these kids getting autism from such a young age? Like, it just didn't sit right with me. So I remember it was the same car ride. I was voicemail. I really should not have been on my phone, but I was in like from Mount Lawley to Mandurah. I was just like voicemailing everyone, ringing Annika, trying to be like, I am not having this. This is not okay. I'm not okay with this. It's not my life. I don't want this for my child. Kurt was like, it's okay because now we know. And I'm like, no, it's not. Stop saying it. Like, I was getting really agitated now. And yeah, I remember my auntie, I went on, I've got the videos. I went back and looked at them after I had spoken to you about it. And I just remember, I like watching it back. I was like, I want to give her a hug so bad and tell her that like, it's going to be okay. Your kid's a legend. Like, don't stress. He's beautiful. And I just remember I wouldn't say autism. I just kept saying global developmental delay. I think my son has this. And my auntie rang me up and she was like, I'm on my way over. My auntie is so beautiful. She's like, I'm on my way over. I'm going to help you. We're going to help him. And I was like, okay, thank you. So my auntie Marnie rocked up. We took photos of absolutely everything in my house, labeled everything, the bin, the spoons, the plant, the door, the dogs. We labeled everything because she could see that I was hurting and that she wanted to help me. And yeah, so every day I'd be like, Bowie, come to the tent. Like, this is the tent. Let's go this way. Like, this is mummy's door. We're going to get in the car. I was like, if I can quickly protect him and save him, it won't be my story. And I just remember like watching it all back is so sad. But now I'm like, I'm so glad I did all that stuff and I'm so glad I shared it and I'm so glad I labeled everything. I'm so glad like I put it out there and people were like, I'm just going to try and help her. So, anyways, 2 weeks later, he got diagnosed with, level 3 or non-verbal autism and a global developmental delay. And even then, even though I had it on paper, 140 something document paper of he had to see a speechy, a ped, and a child psychologist, and they all agreed on the level 3 nonverbal autism. And even though I had it on paper, I still never said it.
At this point, you're being told that autism is genetic
Yes.
and that it's just unlucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They asked me to go back and
And so
look into my family tree, and I was just like, there's no one been diagnosed with autism in my family.
anyone listening who hasn't deep dived into vaccine, without trying to sound like this is just a fucking anti-vaccine episode, this is literally just I've done my research, Tori's done her research, and in that, one of the biggest things that comes up for me right now is the Amish. Like, they still have no cases of autism ever, and they don't vaccinate. Tori, you told me off air that you went on to read a book. So at what point, so you're at the point now where he's being diagnosed with autism. Can you lead us to the point where you started to deep dive into vaccine injuries and also vaccines and the difference between the vaccines that you and I had when we were kids to the vaccines that are on the schedule now, and the difference? Because I think for the person listening and for our older generation, and that, like you said, the doctor who delivered Bowie but also was around to deliver your mum, the differences in vaccines from that point A and point B. Can you take us on that journey to now your understanding and what you've learned along the way with vaccines?
I remember someone sending me this podcast that the Kennedy guy did. And I remember sitting there, and it was this hour and a bit long podcast. And I've listened to it that many times now. And it was like he was a marine scientist, a marine biologist scientist, but like a plethora of all different things. And obviously his uncle was the president and got like assassinated, all these things. And I just remember I was already the biggest conspiracy theorist after this. Like, not conspiracy theorist, but like I deep dive into like everything. And so I just remember coming across this, getting this podcast sent to me and sitting there and listening. And he went around talking about pollution and what it can cause in certain things. And there was always this group of mums in these certain towns that he would go and do these things that were saying that their kids were vaccinated at 18 months old, or like the vaccinations killed their babies. They got SIDS and ended up dying in their sleep. And that, all of these women's, and he said it started small, but then it was millions of women bringing these cases to him because he was all these things. I think a doctor, like all of these different things. And he was just like, there was too many that he couldn't then turn away from it. And it wasn't something that he wanted to be known for. So then that led me to buying one of his books. And I have not read the whole thing because I'm dyslexic and ADHD. So like reading, it's a thick book. I followed him, and I listened to other people's podcasts that were in similar situations. And then it led me to this girl on Instagram. She is a Maori lady. I can't remember her name because my brain is mush.
And if anyone listening wants to listen to this podcast, it's the Joe Rogan's one, isn't it?
Yes, I'm pretty sure he was talking to Joe Rogan. He's done a couple. First one I listened to, I've listened to the Joe Rogan one, but he pretty much says the exact same stuff. So yeah, definitely happy to pass that on.
Cool.
And then I found this Kiwi girl. You would probably follow her or know her. Trying to remember.
Tay's Way.
No, it's another one. She has the tribal.
Oh yeah.
With
Stevie.
yes, Stevie. So I remember I was on holidays down south in the van, and I remember people now knew I was the kind of girl to come to talk to about their skeptics on vaccinations. And again, I'm like you, I'm not anti, I believe it serves a purpose, but I do think the child immunization schedule is ridiculous. That's a nice word. But I remember coming across Stevie, and I remember one of the highlights that she was creating at the time was actually going through what is inside the immunizations. And I remember her reading it out and asking for the pamphlet. I think this was maybe before I got Bowie diagnosed. I can't really remember around the time it was, but I know I was camping. And I remember watching it, and then I got fixated on it, and I was like, I need to get one of these. I need to read the back of it, because when you go in for an immunization, you don't see anything. You don't see any box it come out of. You don't see any paperwork that comes out of it. You don't see anything. They do have a laminated version that they have made up that you can have a look at, but it's not actually what is the box and what's actually in it. And I remember just following that, and I was like, what the hell? And then it led me on to finding another Instagram page that led me to another podcast. And this thing that I watched on Instagram, I can definitely try and find it. It wouldn't be hard, but it was around a study they did with the Hep B vaccination, and how they did a 5-day safety trial on it, and they tested it on a monkey, and they were like that because there's mercury and all this kind of stuff inside vaccinations that your body can't dispose of, but they couldn't find it. I think it was a chimpanzee, they were saying. They couldn't find any traces in the blood, the stool, anything like that. And I can't remember who did it, but someone ended up killing the chimpanzee, opening it up, and found it pulled up in the blood-brain barrier, because you can't test for that throughout the body. It was just showing no traces. And I remember finding this being like, so in my head, I was like, Bowie has had those vaccinations. Bowie has had all of that stuff. Bowie, like, there must be such a buildup of all these toxic chemicals inside Bowie that he can't disperse of. And so that then led me on to being like, what do I need to do to help him? So I went back to the doctors. I said, oh, how do I detox my son? Like, I still hadn't connected that yet. And they were like, you can't, he's fine. Like, I got nowhere anyway. So I again went back to my social media. At this point, I unfortunately had lost my child, my second born. I did end up with like an influx. I think like 1,000 people ended up following me after they seen that. Then they followed Bowie's story from that. So I ended up being able to find a neuroscientist here in Perth that would work with Bowie. I ended up finding all of these zeolite detoxes that I found in America, that this lady's son healed herself from autism and all this kind of stuff. I was just like deep in all of this information. So yeah, I started detoxing Bowie and doing brain therapy on Bowie and doing all of these other things on Bowie. Found a naturopath that works with children. I told this naturopath my story, like Bowie's story. And it was just so nice that she was like, I hear you and I see this a lot. And I was like, well, the doctor's telling me that I'm crazy and that it's normal. And I've got this naturopath that wants to help. And she mentioned gut microbiome, and she mentioned the blood brain barrier. And I was like, it was new to me. Like, I was like, okay, well, now this is the new journey I'm on, trying to figure out all this kind of stuff. I think in the background of me, I had to find out everything because I had to fix what I did, instead of just be like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like us as mums, yeah. So yeah, I started doing all this detoxing, and we went to a naturopath. I got Bowie's heavy metals tested, his stool tested, his like for his gut microbiome. I cut pieces of his hair out to send it off for testing. I did all of these very expensive things that NDIS won't cover because it's not what they want you to do. Ended up finding out Bowie had MTFHR gene, 2 gene mutations, which you can't methylate. So if you don't know what that is, it's like, yeah, it's crazy, and you should not be vaccinated at all, under no circumstance, if you have those, because the ingredients and the things that are in vaccinations for children like Bowie, you can't methylate, so you can't get rid of what you've just put into your body. So it will cause a lot of those things that Bowie has gone through. And the amount of like antibiotics Bowie has had in his life has shredded his gut microbiome. It's like it was nearly non existent. So I worked really closely with this naturopath, and Bowie was on all these herbs. And for a child like Bowie who has food aversions, doesn't eat anything, doesn't drink anything but water and milk, yeah, it was just really hard to get all of this stuff in him and to try and help him and make him like internally a bit better. It's just been like, yeah, really crazy journey. I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry.
Of course it did. Of course. I'm deep in listening to all of it. And something I just want to also mention, like for you're a parent and you hear someone telling their story, when you've said about all the times that you've driven to all these appointments, I'm thinking like as a mum driving, you're dating Mandra, driving hours upon hours every week with your child in the car is exhausting. It's exhausting packing the car in the morning, getting ready, making sure you have all the snacks, the change of clothes, and then if your child doesn't like the car as well, and then the overstimuli that's going on in a car, being in a car with a child that should be running around, burning energy, not strapped into a car seat. Like, I also see all of that, and I wanna also honor all of that because it is fucking hard, let alone you doing that constantly every week for the last however many years of your life. Like, all of those little things that until you're a mum, you just don't see and you don't hear that's going on underneath this story of, "Oh, we just went here and we just went there." Like, it's not just a went there or just a did anything. It's a fucking exhausting day.
It was really rough. Yeah, I'm really grateful that I traveled a lot with Bowie at a young age, so he was okay in the car, but when he wasn't okay in the car, I would pull on the side of the road and just cry and be like, "I've still got 40 minutes." Like, I still have like, I used to I've taken him up to Joondalup for therapy. I've like, honestly, and Joondalup's not a freaking hop, skip, and a jump. It's like it's long. And actually, at the time, I was living in Wanana, so it was very far to be doing all of these things. And I was going twice to Perth for his brain therapy. We were doing OT. We were doing speech therapy. I was just, yeah, trying to do all of these things. And yeah, I was burning out. And I think what kind of, yeah, and it was through that COVID period too. So it was super, super freaking isolating. I remember some people being like, you shouldn't be posting his shit on Facebook and Instagram. And I was like, I am on an island by myself right now. I had not one friend with a kid with autism or one person going through what I was going through at the start of COVID. Yeah, like I said, I lost my daughter at the start of COVID. Bowie just got diagnosed. It was just, I didn't have time to breathe. I had a husband that was doing 2-in-1s, 5 flea 2-in-1s, 2 weeks away, 1 week home. And I was literally holding the fort down. I was going crazy, like honestly going crazy. And I was leaning on all these friendships I made in America of these mums that were going through the same thing because no one talks about it. Like, I think a lot of therapists have said to me, like, the way you speak up and the way you advocate for Bowie is so incredible because I don't see every mum doing that. And I was like, I will never, ever turn my back on doing what I did to Bowie, and I will never not be his voice now. I will never let anyone just deal with my child. Like, it was really hard getting him into schools and what to pick and what to do because that was like a whole nother thing in my area. I didn't know about Ed Support schools. I only knew about, and there's definitely nothing against the Malibu school in Rockingham. But in my head, I was just like, Bowie needs to be around mainstream kids because he was like, he grew up with all of his cousins. He was the youngest at the time. And all of these cousins around him, all of my friends started having babies and kids and stuff like that. So choosing a school was really hard. And I did get him into a school where I had built our first home. And I remember that he had an EA, but it wasn't just for him, where Bowie was nonverbal, couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. It was, yeah, really hard. And I remember them mentioning an Ed Support school, which I had never heard about. I only, again, knew about Malibu, and I wasn't going to drive to Rockingham every single day from Mandra to take him. And I remember being like, Bowie doesn't need that. Like, I know what he needs. And I just remember being like, everyone has fucked with him so much that I'm like, no, he is coming to this school because I didn't treat Bowie like he had special needs. I was like, no, come on. Like if he had, and I know that it might sound mean, but if you met Bowie now, like if anyone on here knew Bowie, um, and knew other kids that were very, very, very similar to Bowie, but got treated differently to how I treat Bowie, I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, this isn't his story. He's not gonna, like, I want him to be the best version of himself. I remember my mum's best friend had a sister with Down syndrome, and her mum went through the same thing. Like, I'm not going to let my daughter's disability ruin, like not ruin her life, because Bowie's gorgeous and beautiful and amazing. And so was Amanda. But she was the one that gave me and my auntie the ideas to label everything. And like my mum's best friend's sister, Amanda, she was so beautiful, so cheeky. She could talk, but it was the way that her mum was with her. She was kind of like, this doesn't defy you. This isn't your story, your end story. Like, you are beautiful. You have every opportunity in this world, like any person. So I think after hearing that, I was kind of just like, I'm going to be that mum as well, because I looked at Sue and how she was with Amanda, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to cry. I was like, I am going to be that mum. So when Bowie had like a meltdown or a thing, I was like, come on, mate, you could, like, he might not have under bloody stood me. Like, he probably had no idea what I was going on about, but I was always like, get up, we're doing it. Or like, put your shoes on. You have to wear your shoes, buddy. Like, let's go. I ended up not caring about the shoes thing, but I was like, I don't want to be a cripple at home being defeated by this and being like, I can't take this kid anywhere. There's still a lot of places I won't take Bowie, but that it's only kids' birthday parties, because it's chaos. But yeah, I was just kind of like, I'm going to be that advocate for him, and we're going to push through a lot of these things. And I, yeah, remember this therapist telling me, like, I don't see many mums doing that for their kids. They kind of get told what it is and they just let us deal with it. They don't do the things that you're doing at home, because I did share everything I was doing, like trying to get him to eat food, doing my own food therapy with him, trying to intervene a lot of these things and get him comfortable being uncomfortable, like with textures. I was like, made it sand common. I know it's hard. Look, mummies do it. Like, I would just do a lot of those things that, yeah, not a lot of people, I guess, did, which I thought I didn't know. I didn't know that at all. I thought like everyone would do what I was doing, but it's definitely not the case.
Tori, did you want to go into sharing your journey with your daughter?
In 2020, we were going through what we were going through with Bowie. So I think it was at the start of that year that a lot of those things were happening, because we went into lockdown and COVID. My sister came over from Berlin, because I was meant to be getting married in May, May the 2nd, and she was my maid of honor. So she actually, that was when she come over and was just like, I think Bowie might have autism. And so we started that journey then. But anyway, my wedding got cancelled. And so me and my husband were like, he was my boyfriend at the time. We were like, well, we want to expand our family. I know that we're going through shit with Bowie, but, you know, we want another child. And it hadn't put us off having kids or being scared, because we both had said we will never vaccinate one of our kids ever again. So we knew that our journey would be different, hoping. The parents that we were now, the detoxing that we did and all that kind of stuff, we knew that we weren't going to vaccinate her. So anyways, I had the best pregnancy. It was straightforward. I worked up, I'm a hairdresser by trade. I worked right up until having her. I think I did my last client, and then 4 days later, I went into labor. Bowie was a C-section. So I had him via C-section, which is a whole nother thing with a lot of his things, C-section. So the same doctor I went to, should have learned my lesson. I went to the same doctor, and he was just like, why don't you try for a VBAC? And I was like, what is that? I didn't know what that was. And he explained it to me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, let's do that. And he was like, well, you need to be eligible. You have to meet a certain thing, but you're early on in your pregnancy. It's been 18 months since your son. Like, it's fine. Or it was 2 years or something. Well, I can't remember actually. I actually didn't get looked after properly. So I should have been having regular scar checks, which I had no idea. And this is another reason I just don't trust in a lot of the system and all that kind of stuff, is because there was a duty of care that did not get met again with one of my children. So I never had a scar scan. But anyway, it's textbook beautiful. I went into natural labor at midnight. I woke up and I labored awesomely at home. But there was going into the hospital, there was all these rules and regulations that was going to have to happen because I was having a C-section. So I needed to be monitored as soon as I went into labor, but I was feeling safe at home and okay. So ended up calling them. I wanted to be safe. I had just had news that my friend's baby passed away during birth, literally the day before. So I was like, that was in the forefront of my mind. And we did our whole pregnancies together. And so I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go to hospital now. I'm having bad thoughts. So I went in there. They knew my case. They knew everything, that I was a VBAC mum, that I only had my son 18 or whatever, 2.5 years ago. And yeah, so the lady that I seen at the desk, she was like, we're going to get you checked over and then we're going to bring you into the labor ward and monitor you up. Like you need to have all the monitors. I was like, whatever, because my friend's baby just died. I told her that. I was like, whatever. I need it all on me. I want to protect this baby. Anyway, it was 6 a.m. in the morning, so they had shift change. So I got a clinical midwife. So I was kind of like, yes, the best in the biz. Nothing can go wrong here. She is from a different place in this world where their culture is quite strong. And I think I was only 2 centimeters dilated, but I was in excruciating pain. So she wanted to send me home because she said to us, like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You're 2 centimeters dilated. And I was like, but I'm having a VBAC. I'm meant to be monitored. Anyway, so I said, no, I wasn't going home because I had grown that backbone with Bowie. I said, I'm staying here. And yeah, it just went really wrong. Long story short, I ended up having a uterine rupture, undiagnosed for 2 hours. And she was born. We went down for an emergency C-section and they wanted to put me to sleep. And I was like, if you put me to sleep, I will sue you guys. Like, I do not want to be put to sleep. And one of the most beautiful midwives in the entire world saved my life. And she was like, if you don't want to be put to sleep, you need to sit up right now. So I was like, I can't move because my daughter Valley was out of my uterus and inside my body. She was no longer in my uterus. And so I got ripped up and, I felt them like cut me open, but couldn't feel it after that. It went straight in and she came out. They gave her like adrenaline to keep her heart going and they resuscitated her. And then they came over and just said, after a few minutes, her heart stops. And I was like, just stop touching her. Like, you have done enough. Like, stop touching her. And then, that she passed away. Yeah. At the hands of this clinical midwife. For being complacent in her job.
I hate getting through this. Is absolute. Honestly, my heart's breaking for you. No one should have to have gone through what you've gone through. Tori, how did you manage to get through that time of your life and to this moment in time now, all whilst caring for a child with high needs? And every day for you, every day for every parent is hard. Like, it is hard. It's full on. It's constant. It's nonstop. For me, getting in the car and driving to the shops and popping to Coles is fucking hard. And I'm sitting here looking at you being like, everything you do, everywhere you go is quadruple the amount of hard that any other parent is feeling, let alone carrying this amount of grief and doing it alone. How have you gotten through?
I don't know how I've survived. Look, it hasn't been all like, oh, I'm easy breezy. It was like, whatever. Like, there's been times I've been on the floor and not wanted to be here. I've just thought of myself of like, why me? But then I, I'm, I was in such a place already when I lost Valley that I was like, everything happens for a reason, whether it's shit or not shit. And I just felt like, obviously I grieved her. It was the worst thing that anyone in this planet goes through is the loss of a child. I don't care like what anyone says, like no one should ever have to bury their child, no matter how old they are or how young they are. So I never thought I would be planning a baby funeral. Like, I never thought that I would have to pick out urns or casks or anything like that. I never thought that I would go in to birth a baby and then go pick her up from the cemetery in a box. Like, I never thought that would be my story. I've heard about it, but I never thought it would be my story. In fact, to have two of the most awful things that you go through as a person happen to me in the space of 3 years, I just thought, what is this trying to teach me? Like, what am I like? I'm human. I cry all the time about it. I actually used to journal when I first lost her, and I actually read it the other day, and I was literally just like, how the fuck did you survive that? Like, how did you get up and get on? But I didn't have a choice. I had a FIFO husband that worked away. We were blessed that he got 16 weeks off to be there because I just had major surgery and I was grieving the loss of my daughter. And then also having to care for a little 2.5-year-old that just got diagnosed with level 3 autism and a global developmental delay, nonverbal. I couldn't even communicate with him. Like, it was really hard. But I think I just got on with it. I just looked at him and I was like, I don't want you to it's going to make me cry. Your sister would want me to support you. And if I'm not there, you've got no one. You don't have a voice. You can't dress yourself. Like, there's just so many things that I had to I just had to get on with it. I couldn't do there. I had no choice. I had no choice. So I just had to do it. So I made sure though that, like, when I wasn't okay, that I reached out to someone to let them know that I'm struggling today. Can you come and sit with Bowie? Me and Bowie would drive to the beach so he could just run free and I could just sit there and scream. People probably thought someone was getting murdered. Like, I would just go down to the beach and scream. I didn't want to be a bitter person and I felt like the world was trying to change me and that, like, all my experiences were trying to ruin me. But I just looked at Bowie and just, I just had to get on. I couldn't, it wasn't fair for him if I just sat there. But I wanted to already just talk about my daughter and be stoked that I had the best pregnancy and that she was so cute. Like, when she came out, she was so beautiful and cute. And I just wanted to feel good. I didn't want to, I'm someone that when something bad happens, I like get on, but I do make sure. I was telling my cousin last night, I was like, make sure that, like, when the grief wave comes, that you feel it, you don't suppress it. I never wanted to suppress it, but I also didn't want to die, because when I had Valley, the doctor actually came up to my room the next day and was like, Tori, I am so sorry, but you're so lucky you had 20 more minutes. You were just filling up with blood. Like, so I knew that, like, if I died or I become a shell of a person, who's looking after Bowie? Like, who's going to look after that little human that needs me more than ever and that needs me? Kurt has to keep working. Like, I didn't want to burden anyone with my shit. So I was like, let's get up. Let's talk to Valley and let's move on. Let's get her to put her arms around Bowie and let's get it. And I know that must sound like morbid and that, like, I don't have a heart, that I just move on with life. But yeah, I didn't want to waste my life sitting in a room wishing all the things that I don't have over what I have.
Can you tell everybody then your next journey with your next pregnancy and meeting Raya?
Little Ray Ray. That crazy, crazy girl. She definitely has two souls, that girl. So I obviously went home with a empty car seat and a room full of baby stuff. And I just thought to myself, like, if I could have 15 babies, trust me, I would have a minibus and I would live on my land and just raise these crazy wild Crawfords. Was my dream. And so I did go to the doctors and I did say, hey, look, I know what's happened. And I know it's a bit early me asking this, but I have all this baby stuff and I want a baby. Like, am I able to have another baby? What is the go? What's the process? And I actually ended up in hospital. I stayed with Valley for 5 to 6 days in hospital after, which a lot of people think that that's weird, but it was really healing for me, being able to spend those days with Valley holding her like she was here. But yeah, I ended up back in hospital 3 days after getting out of hospital with a raging infection. And so I went to Mandurah Hospital, my actual local hospital, and I met with an awesome doctor, Dr. Kell, who literally saved my life and gave me faith and hope back in the system a little bit. And he heard about me before he met me. So, like, when we met each other, he was like, it's crazy that you're in my bed in my hospital, like, not his hospital, but, like, you know what I mean, in front of him. And yeah, so after I stayed in hospital for another 2 nights or 3 nights. He was like, "I'd like to take over your care and look after you, and if you ever need anything in the future, please let me know." So anyway, I went for you still have to go and get your own checkups after your cesarean. So I went back a few weeks after. He made sure that I like had booked in with him. And I did say to him on one of the second visits, it's the worst thing walking into a maternity practice without a baby. Like that was honestly awful, but everyone in there knew my story and they knew what happened and they were just so comforting. I got to sit in a private room, not listening to anything. Like they were amazing. But I did say to him, like, can I have another baby? What's the go? I love Valley and I love like that, but I want another baby. And he was just like, give it 4 to 6 months. Your uterus is a muscle, it heals. So I went then on a deep dive on like how to heal my uterus better. What do I have to take? Do I need massages? What castor oil is the best castor oil to rub on my womb? Like all of these things. And on the dot, as soon as he said I could, that month I fell pregnant with Rhea. I'm a bit like you, but obviously my story is different and I had just had a baby that died. So I don't like intervention much. I don't like I'm like huge on radiation. I'm huge on a lot of those things. Obviously I went through what I went through with Bowie and still go through that. But I also didn't want another dead baby. So I was like, what do we have to do? And he was like, I know, I told him how I am and what I'm like and what my non-negotiables are. I don't want any midwife to ask me about vaccinations. I'm not getting the COVID jab. Like I was pretty strict on a lot of things and he was so comfortable with my decisions and let me be how I wanted to be. I went for 2 weekly checkups because I did just have a uterine rupture. And so I was uncomfortable with that. But at the same time, I am in this low tox lifestyle. So I know that there's an oil to help with everything. So I was like, just making sure that I was using oils that helped with radiation, like all of these things, because I was getting scans every 2 weeks, which I wouldn't normally choose. But in that situation, I was kind of like, anything, I'm just doing anything. Um, but yeah, she's wild, crazy. My pregnancy was exactly like Valley's. It was amazing and easy, but my mental side was not okay and not good. Like I thought I was dying and she was dying every 2 minutes. But it was totally fine. Her birth was the most healing, amazing experience. I did have another planned C-section. Bowie was planned, Valley wasn't, and Ray was a planned C-section. Everyone in the room, I had to have her at King Eddie's on the gold team, which is the high-risk pregnancy team. I had Jan. She was incredible. She was like a mum. She just had that warm heart. Every time she's seen me, she cuddled me and she just was super kind. And I look back at Ray's photos all the time. And yeah, she's fully unvaxxed. She's wild, crazy. She's above her years. She's awesome. She's honestly beautiful.
Tori, listening to your story is the emotions are high and they're low, and I am just honored to know you personally and to hear this story completely. Like, I think I've been following you for, I'm guessing, around a year. So I've seen little glimpses of this story, but I haven't heard it from the start to finish of where you are now. What is the future for is it Crawford family?
Yes.
Crawford.
Well, just quickly, so Bowie was obviously diagnosed with nonverbal autism, but we moved him to an ed support school and now he is talking. He ate fish last night. I know that that's not a big deal, but in this family, he only eats nuggets and spaghetti, so plain spaghetti. So he ate fish last night. He's talking. And we will just see what the future has. We have a few big plans in the works, but I don't want to share all of them. Maybe a big move, actually moving state. No, not states. We're still in WA, but moving town somewhere hotter. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you so much for your time today. I have loved listening to this every moment. For those listening, if you can share this story with someone you know and trust that is also perhaps questioning knowing that me and Tori are sitting here right now, we're hearing you. And there's people out there that maybe outside your friends, maybe outside your family, maybe outside your network that understand you and will hear you. And sometimes this is probably one of the best things about social media is that we have access to people all around the world, that there's always someone out there that will understand you and that will hear you and won't think you're crazy.
Yeah.
So if you have that gut feeling, listen to it, follow your intuition.
Mhm.
And I'm going to get all of the podcast and the book recommendations off Tori. We're going to leave it in the show notes and hope you have a lovely rest of your day.